Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 25 series, Can We Save the Oakland A's? And our Oakland A's, after winning 120 regular season games for the second consecutive season, are 3/11ths of the way to a repeat World Series championship. We swept the Chicago White Sox last week in a best-of-5 series, 3 games to none in the American League Division Series, and getting ready to prepare for a rematch in the ALCS against the Detroit Tigers, who we ousted in 6 games a year ago on our way to winning the World Series. Certainly, if we can oust them in 6 games again, we will sign up for that, because we'll be one step closer to a back-to-back World Series title if that happens. A few quick housekeeping notes based on some comments to the previous episode before we get started. We did do an initial review at the end of the last episode of the International Free Agent Showcase. Obviously, very early in the process. We've got 3 months to get to know these players better. Some hopefully will look better than we think they look right now. Some certainly will probably look like their ceilings are not quite as high as we believe as we get more accurate scouting reports. But thanks to Peter Hooper and DLL First Base 14 for giving some initial thoughts on some of the players that perhaps will end up near the top of our list when we get to know them better. You'll also note here the goal to still acquire a power hitter that we're making no progress with. And Stanley Rosella noted in the last episode that we have a pretty power-heavy lineup here. Everyone except our leadoff hitter, Chisin Iwata, in double digits in terms of home runs. And we have 5 players with 29-plus home runs on the season. And when we take a look at our team statistics, we led the American League with 241 home runs this year. So Stanley made the very valid point that the fact that that is something that old man Fisher is very insistent that we proceed with is perhaps a symptom that the owner goals could still use a bit of refinement. Don't know if that's going to be coming with OOTP 26, which will be out, I believe, in about 3 weeks. Did watch the latest video with Will Bay and Dr. Dynastic about some of the changes to the draft coming up yesterday evening, and very interested in seeing how those are ultimately implemented, the changes to kind of make the draft experience, I think, deeper, more immersive, and better will be quite interesting, and also looking forward to the changes that are coming in the player development lab. So although we've still got a lot of work to do here in OOTP 25, also pretty excited to start thinking about OOTP 26. And a last thing that we're thinking about here as we get closer and closer to the end of this season is next year. And Alkshi brought up a point in a comment to the last episode about Chisin Iwata, our leadoff hitter, eventually perhaps getting too expensive for us, which I do agree with. The same thing is happening with the likes of Darnell Selvey and Luis Godina, the guys who we could not really afford to sign 2 extensions. When we look at 2044 and what's in place, the good news is that we don't have anyone who's automatically going to be a free agent after this season, so we can bring back, by and large, this entire 120-win team, in theory. The reason that probably doesn't work is that right now the proposed salary to bring back this exact same team is about $35 million more than we're currently paying today in payroll. And barring an unexpectedly generous result from Mr. Fisher in the budget for next year following this season, we're probably going to have some pretty difficult decisions to make. Unlike the past several years, there's no free agents that we're just obviously not going to sign, but still likely to have to make some interesting decisions with our roster. I did mention in my response to Alkshi's comment that with Iwata, who's played shortstop for us primarily the last season or two, although he started off at second base, and Godina, who's been a first baseman and second baseman for us over the years, getting more expensive. It is good that we now have the youngster David Palomares locked up, and we also have a couple of other young infielders who have made their debut in recent months for us, in Nelson Ramiro and Luis Rangel, who are both making the major league minimum right now, because it's not inconceivable that over the next one or two off seasons, both Iwata and Godina could be moving on from our Oakland A's. And hopefully, if and when they do move along, we'll be doing it from a position of strength, having won another World Series championship. As I mentioned, our American League Championship Series is a rematch of last year's American League Championship Series that we won, and it'll be beginning tomorrow with us hosting the Detroit Tigers. As we talked about at the end of the last episode, the Tigers actually took the season series from us this year. They won 4 out of 7 games against us. They have the second best pitching staff in the American League, behind only us, and a pretty good offense as well, ranking 5th. That being said, as the 120-win team with the best record in baseball, home field advantage, and being the defending World Series champions with the best offense and the best pitching staff in the league, certainly can't argue that we shouldn't be favored in this series, even though Detroit did somehow get it over on us 4-3 during the regular season this year. Hopefully we can turn the tables on them now and win 4 of the next 7 games. And with the time we've had off since the 3-0 sweep we had against the White Sox, we've got our rotation set up the way that we want it for this series. 2-time defending Cy Young Award winner Federico Arriola, who's now led the American League in wins, 3 straight wins, 21-4 record, 2.94 ERA this year. Right-hander will be on the mound for our Oakland Athletics. For Detroit, the right-hander, 26-year-old Mike McGillivray, 11-5 this year with a 3.43 ERA. Houston traded the young righty to Detroit this past offseason. Put up a 3.9 WAR this year, which actually is a higher WAR than we got from Mr. Arriola this season. So should be an interesting matchup. Hopefully we can get the series off to a good start today against the Tigers. And we do get a 4-2 victory. Arriola earns the W. McGillivray takes the loss. And Joe Heilman, who had a pretty rough ALDS, gets the save. 4-2 victory. We did give up a couple of home runs, so obviously a couple of solo shots for the 2 Tigers runs in the first and the 6th inning. We did all of our scoring in the second, 4 runs in the bottom of second, run-scoring double from Bobby Armstrong, and then a 2-run double by Chisin Iwata, the big blows for us. We allowed only 5 hits to Detroit, had only 7 hits ourselves. Juan Pimentel and Bobby Armstrong, the only players on the team with a couple of hits today for our Oakland Athletics. Arriola with a real nice outing. 5 hits, 1 walked, 2 earned runs, both on the solo home runs over 7 innings. Struck out 7 to earn the victory. Rangel and Heilman combined for 2 innings of hitless relief to finish things off. McGillivray, not great. 6 hits, 4 runs, all earned over 4 1/3 innings. David Caudillo came in and allowed just 1 hit over the last 3 2/3 innings, but too little, too late for Detroit at that point. and we're off to a 1-0 series lead. The big hope now is to win tomorrow here at home and head to Detroit with a 2-0 lead. Game number 2, we have the outstanding rookie left-hander Luis Villarreal on the mound, 18-4 with a league best 2.62 earned run average for us as a rookie this season. On the mound for Detroit, 35-year-old right-hander Nate West, 13-5 record with a 3.55 earned run average this year. By far the best season he's had over the last couple of seasons in the majors. He's definitely struggled. The veteran doesn't have the most impressive stuff in the world anymore, but does have extreme ground ball tendencies and above average movement and control. So still an effective major league pitcher, although you'd have to say that the pitching matchup should favor us today. And it certainly doesn't always work out in your favor when you think the pitching matchup should favor you, but hopefully the result will favor us today, and we do get a 6-2 victory. Villarreal with the win. Jim Kroll takes the loss, presumably in relief. They did get a couple more homers from Lehman and Corinha, the two guys who hit homers yesterday. Our young second baseman, David Palomares, who did not have a very good regular season, but we kept in the lineup against right-handed pitching, and he's been more effective in these playoffs. Hit our lone home run. Interesting scenario here, similar to yesterday. Both of the Detroit runs were off of solo home runs by the same two players. And all of our scoring came in one inning. Run scoring single, a run scoring single by Godina, a 2-run double by Mr. Richards, and then Palomares' home run was a 3-run shot. So a big bottom of the fourth for the Oakland Athletics. West was perfect over 2 1/3 innings and then got injured while he was pitching. So that probably didn't help things. And then Kroll came in and had a very rough outing. 5 hits, including a home run allowed, a walk, and 6 earned runs over just an inning and a third. Villarreal, outstanding. 3 hits allowed, no walks, and 12 strikeouts over 7 innings pitched. Allowed just 1 run. Savion Keys did give up a solo homer. And they also lost a second pitcher who was injured in relief, Bobby Darling. So depending on how serious those injuries are to West and Darling, Detroit could be in a pretty difficult situation heading to the Motor City down 2-0. So the first 2 games of this ALCS have gone about as well as we could have hoped. Have that 2-0 lead on the Tigers. Looking over at the National League, the Mets, who we topped in last year's World Series, seem very interested in potentially having a rematch. They've got a 2-1 lead on the Cardinals at this point. Obviously, we'd love to win 2 games here in Detroit over these next 3 days and get some time off before the World Series begins and not have to face a little bit of pressure in a Game 6 or Game 7. But realistically, as long as we win 1 game of the next 3 in Detroit, we'll go home with a lead, and we'll certainly like our odds in that scenario. Couple of pitchers on the mound who have been effective in the playoffs this year. We've got another lefty on the mound. Mike Blumenshine was 9-1 with an ERA just over 2 this year. Only started 22 games due to injuries, and he's basically a 5-inning pitcher at best at this point, but very effective when he's on the mound. We'll be going up against a lefty, the 34-year-old Daniel Saucedo. Wrecked physically, but he's led the American League in games started 2 straight years now. 14-9, 3.24 ERA, and a 3.5 WAR for the veteran. Saucedo, a pretty solid pitcher, good three-pitch arsenal, above average stuff, movement, and control. Similar to Blumenshine, doesn't have the greatest stamina in the world, kind of a 4 to 5 inning pitcher most likely as well. So may come down to which bullpen pitches better, and we have a lot of confidence in our bullpen. And we do get a 7-2 win today, and it looks like we did get into the bullpen to get the victory. John Knight, who we picked up for starting pitching depth when we were having all those injuries earlier this season, working in the bullpen for us now, and he gets the win in relief. Saucedo takes the loss. A couple of homers from Godina and one from the DH Ramirez. Corinne has hit a homer in every game in this series after hitting 40 during the regular season, but his Tigers are down now 3-0. Taking a look at the box score, and finally scored in more than one inning. Jumped out with 2 runs in the first, 2-run homer from Godina. Godina added a run-scoring single in the top of the third for us. Detroit came back with a run in the fourth, and then another 2-run home run from Godina in the top of the fifth to extend the lead to 5-1. Extended it to 7-1. They did come back with a run in the bottom of the sixth, but that was it. So we've held the Tigers to 2 runs in each of the 3 games of this series, and if we can continue pitching that way, definitely going to be difficult to beat. Godina with the monster game, 3 for 4, 2 runs scored, 5 ribbies, including a couple of homers. Also got ribbies from Ramirez and Pimentel, and Ramirez and Pimentel also had 2 hit games for us as well. Blumenshine only went 4 innings, allowed just 1 run over those 4 innings, so he was effective in an albeit limited role. Knight came on through 57 pitches in relief, allowed a run over 3 1/3 to get the victory, and then Berlanga, with no save on the line, pitched the final inning in 2/3. Saucedo was not good, and then the reliever Jolin Litt really got lit up, giving up 4 hits, 2 walks, and 3 earned runs, including a couple of homers over just 2/3 of an inning of work. Blumenshine actually injured while pitching, pending elbow injury. Thought the 74 pitches, maybe he just got tired. So that's certainly potential negative news as we get closer to potentially getting into the World Series, given Blumenshine's injury history and the fact that he missed a lot of starts this year. Certainly don't think an elbow injury cropping up now is going to just be a little annoyance. Starting to prepare myself mentally for perhaps needing to make some roster changes for a potential World Series. But before we can think about a potential World Series, we've still got to win 1 more game. And one of the guys who we mentioned could be playing a more prominent role with us for salary reasons down the line, Luis Rangel, was just named the Pacific Coast League Player of the Year. All he did there was hit .320 with 44 homers and 116 ribbies. Was a September call-up for us, and he was very impressive. .467 batting average with 1 homer and 7 ribbies and 30 at-bats. Combined for a 5.7 WAR between AAA and the majors. So Rangel hasn't got a lot of playing time in the playoffs, but as I noted, with Iwata and Godina both starting to get expensive and us potentially up against it salary-wise this offseason, not inconceivable. We may need to be making some trades of good young veterans to save some money and give opportunities to the likes of Rangel. The young catcher, Luis Covarrubias, who is on our playoff roster, also finished 3rd in the voting after having a .310 average, 30 homers and 81 ribbies, and playing some outstanding catcher defense in Las Vegas. Still waiting to hear what happens with Blumenshine in his injury. We've got the 3-0 lead. St. Louis just won a game, so they're tied 2-2 with the Mets now. On the mound for Detroit, Jim Nelson, 25-year-old left-hander, 11-10 with a 3.99 earned run average this season. Led the American League with a quality start percentage of over 70% this season. And he was an all-star a year ago in 2042 when he led the league in the fewest home runs per 9 innings. So a good pitcher on the mound for Detroit. We've got a good righty on the mound for us. Doug Weiss, the 31-year-old that we drafted in the 4th round out of Austin Peay just about a decade ago. When we were in the ALCS and the World Series last year, we certainly anticipated that Weiss was pitching his final games with the A's. We did end up surprisingly bringing him back this offseason in a very front-loaded contract, $24 million for this year, and then that number goes down to $15 million for the next 2 to 4 seasons. Unfortunately, a very injury-plagued year for Mr. Weiss. He's moved from fragile to wrecked physically, and he pitched only 3 games for us in September and into October. Fortunately, in those 3 games, a 3-0 record with a 1.20 ERA. So at this point of his career, you just hope to get 5 innings out of him and hope that he doesn't end up on the injured list after he pitches. Right now, we've spent $8 million a start for Mr. Weiss this year. The hope is maybe he can win another 2 or 3 games for us in this postseason. And if we come away with a World Series championship, even though Weiss certainly did not deliver a high ROI for us on that $24 million salary, if we win it all, that's really all what it's about. And with the fact that Blumenshine does appear that he might be banged up, it's going to be even more critical for Weiss to come out of this game in good shape, since he conceivably could be our number 3 pitcher by the time we get to a potential World Series. Can our Oakland A's get the sweep done today? Let's find out. And we do get a sweep with a 15-6 victory. So the Tigers scored as many runs in game number 4 as they had in the first 3 games of the series. But we erupted for 15 runs. Berlanga looks like he got the W in relief. Kroll with his 2nd loss of the series. Got home runs from Pimentel, Ramirez, and Armstrong. Luis Godina named your ALCS MVP. Interesting, we had 2 runs in the first, 1 in the second, and 2 in the third to jump out to a 5-0 lead. Detroit, though, came back with 5 runs in the bottom of the third and 1 in the fourth to take a 6-5 lead on us. But in the late innings on the road, we were pretty dominant. A run in the 6th, crooked number with 3 in the 7th, 1 in the 8th, and then 5 in the 9th to ultimately put the Tigers out of their misery. Pimentel, a monster game for us, 4 for 6, 3 runs and 4 ribbies. Also got 3 ribbies from Ramirez and Armstrong and a couple from Richards. 3 runs from Pimentel, 3 runs from Godina, couple from Richards, and 3 from Armstrong. Everybody in the lineup, except for Darnell Selvey, scored a run, and everyone except Selvey and Swenson drove in a run for us. So the offense, very impressive. Doesn't look like Weiss was hurt, so that's positive. He just was not very good in the game. He got trounced 7 hits 1 walk and 5 earned runs over just 2 2/3 innings in his playoff debut for 2043. But after that, the bullpen was good. Keys, Berlanga, Rangel, Shearer, and Surgener combined for 6 1/3 innings of relief, allowing just 1 more run. Nelson with a start for Detroit that was basically just as bad as what Weiss did. And our Oakland A's are on to the World Series and 4 games away from that long pursued repeat. And fortunately, with the fact that Weiss had such a poor outing, not horrible news from Blumenshine. Sore elbow, only going to keep him out for 3 more days. Was certainly anticipating something worse than that. So good news on the injury front. We've got a few off days at least until the World Series at this point, and Blumenshine will only be our 3rd starter anyways. With the 4-game sweep, our rotation is set up just the way that we want it. So shouldn't have to miss any time, and because of that, we're probably unlikely to make any changes to the playoff roster. 7-0 in the playoffs thus far, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I mentioned earlier that the ALCS this year was a rematch of last year when we faced off against the Tigers. And we still have potential for a World Series rematch, but St. Louis is making it interesting. The series all knotted up at 3-3. And the Cardinals do have home field advantage on the Mets, so deciding game number 7 to determine who will be facing off against in the World Series. And it will not be a rematch, as the Cardinals ended up taking out the Mets on 7 games, 4-3. So the top team in the American League and the top team in the National League will be facing off this year. Our 120-win Oakland A's will be going up against the 92-win St. Louis Cardinals, who, as I noted, won more games than anyone in the NL this year. And the 2043 World Series about to get underway between our Oakland Athletics and the St. Louis Cardinals. Those of you who have followed this series closely know that we're potentially 4 games away from doing something that we've never done. We've now been guiding Oakland for 20 seasons through this series. We've had a lot of success, even though our budget has typically been one of the 3 smallest in baseball. We've won 5 World Series titles total, and we've won 4 of the last 7 World Series championships, including last season. But the one goal that we've talked about that we haven't achieved is winning a back-to-back championship, and we are now just 4 games away from potentially doing that. As I mentioned, we'll be going up against a 92-win Cardinals team. We had the best pitching staff in the American League, and they were tied for the fewest runs allowed in the National League, so a great pitching staff for St. Louis. A pretty average offense, though, ranking 9th in the league in runs scored. So our hope certainly is that our outstanding pitching staff is going to hold down the Cardinals. And the hope is certainly to get the series off to another good start with our ace, Federico Arriola, on the mound. But a very good one on the mound for St. Louis today. 29-year-old Ken Yohannes, right-hander, led the National League with 19 wins this year. 19-5 record, also led the league with a 2.47 ERA, a 1.06 WHIP, and 0.6 home runs per 9 innings. Put up a WAR of 5.2. So the right-hander, 29 years old, has never been an all-star. did win a World Series championship back in 2039. But even though he's never been an All-Star, he's got a pretty strong case to perhaps win a Cy Young Award for St. Louis this year. So a really good pitching matchup here in game number 1. Can we start off this World Series the same way we've started off our first 2 playoff series, with a victory? And we cannot. So we finally find ourselves in a hole. We've lost our first game of these playoffs. We've lost at home, so we've given home field advantage to St. Louis, just 1 game into this series. Yohannes with the win, Arriola with the loss. We did get a homer from Iwata. They got 2 home runs from Lupe Melena, who hit only 8 home runs in the regular season. So that was rough for us. Traded runs in the 2nd and 4th innings, and then St. Louis with 2 in the 6th and 3 in the 8th. Ended up having a pretty easy 6-2 victory. 14 hits for the Cardinals, only 6 for our Oakland Athletics. Godina with the only 2-hit day for us, but our 4, 5, 6, and 7 hitters were combined 0 for 13 with 6 strikeouts between them. So even when the top of the order was trying to get things started, just not a lot of offense for us here today. Arriola was actually respectable, albeit not great, but 8 hits, 3 earned runs, no walks, and 4 strikeouts over 7 innings. Rangel, not good in relief, 5 hits and 3 earned runs, recorded just 2 outs with 26 pitches. Yohannes with a nice outing, 3 hits, 2 walks, and 7 strikeouts. The only run that he allowed was the solo home run to Iwata in the 4th inning. So our Oakland Athletics in a odd position, down 1 game to none, and also now facing a bit of pressure. We certainly don't want to be headed to St. Louis down 2 games to 0. We've got Villarreal, who's 2-0 with a 1.29 ERA, the young lefty on the mound for us here. Obviously won both of the games that he pitched in this postseason, and he got the W in both of them. But on the mound for Sam Bradley, someone else who's 2-0 with an ERA that's outstanding at 1.53. 31-year-old right-hander, only 7-8 this year for St. Louis, with a 4.65 ERA. The 2.6 WAR he put up this year was only half of what he had done in each of the previous 2 seasons, but still a guy with very good control, above average stuff, and above average movement. Certainly would think that on paper we are favored, but it's going to be another tough matchup for us against that excellent St. Louis pitching staff. And fortunately, Villarreal looks like he threw a gem. 3-0 victory for us. Heilman with the save. Got home runs from Uresti and Pimentel. Would clearly prefer to be heading to St. Louis up 2-0, but given that we lost game number 1, heading there tied 1-1 was the best that we could hope for. Pimentel and Uresti with their solo homers in the 1st and 2nd innings. Uresti added a run-scoring double in the 6th. Only 3 hits for St. Louis, so another really good pitching matchup. Villarreal runs his record in the playoffs to 3-0, 3 hits, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts over 6 innings. And then Rangel, Shearer, and Heilman combined for 3 innings of no-hit relief. Bradley had a quality start, 6 hits, 3 earned runs over 6 1/3 innings, but fortunately Villarreal with an outstanding game for us, and will be heading to St. Louis tied 1-1. They still have home field advantage on us now, though. It's a 5-game series, and the next 3 are in St. Louis. So a pivotal game number 3 will be happening today in St. Louis. minimum viable product for us over the next 3 days is to win at least one of these games to send ourselves back down to Oakland. But certainly we want to win 2 out of 3 in St. Louis. So we're headed home to Oakland, not needing to be perfect. Blumenschein, after that scare with his elbow, the left-hander, back on the mound for us. Dan Jorgensen, 26-year-old lefty on the mound for St. Louis, 16-5 with a 3.96 ERA this season. So another very good pitching matchup between two of the best pitching staffs in all of baseball. We figured that runs were going to be tough to come by in this series with the great pitching staffs on both sides. Our hope is that St. Louis's less impressive offense will be one that Blumenschein can hold down today. And we do get a victory, 10-5. Looks like we got into the bullpens. Keys with the win. Palomo takes the loss. Uresti, Godina, and Pimentel with home runs for our Oakland Athletics. So we've guaranteed that we're either going to win the World Series or at least be playing more games in Oakland by virtue of winning game number 3 here. So a big step in the right direction for our ultimate goal. St. Louis did jump out with 3 runs in the bottom of the first, but we quickly came back in the top of the second, 3-run homer from Pimentel. St. Louis was up 5-4, heading into the fifth. Top of the fifth, the run scoring single from Armstrong. Bases loaded walk to Swenson. Got 3 runs in the fifth and then added 3 more in the eighth for the 10-5 victory. St. Louis only 6 hits on the day, and they also committed 3 errors. Pimentel and Godina, not surprisingly, with the monster days for us. Both of them had 3 runs batted in. Blumenschein wasn't hurt, but only 55 pitches and a rough outing for him. 4 hits, 3 walks, 5 earned runs over just 2 2/3 innings. Keys, Berlanga, Surgener, and Ibarra combined to allow just 2 hits and 2 walks over the final 6 1/3 innings of the game. The youngster Berlanga in particularly deserves a shout out. Perfect over 3 innings while striking out 4 and stabilizing the game for us. Jorgensen really hurt by those errors. 6 hits, 2 walks, and 5 runs over 4 2/3 innings. But only one of the runs was earned. Palomo, who took the loss, allowed 2 runs, neither of which were earned. So some key errors for St. Louis. Injuries, which I was obviously looking at when I started talking about errors. The reliever Joey Gaskins injured while pitching, pending arm injury for Mr. Gaskins. So with a 2-1 series lead, Doug Weiss, after that very rough outing in his first postseason start, likely gets his final chance to try to justify that $24 million salary. And honestly, if he gets us a W today, we'll only be a win away from a World Series championship. And although he was extremely overpaid this year, if he wins today, he's kind of done his job. Right-hander, 22-year-old Rodolfo Roblero on the mound for the Cardinals, 5-9 with a 3.75 ERA this year. So another good pitching matchup. Would have to think if Weiss is on, he's probably a bit more talented than Roblero, but another good pitching matchup between these two excellent pitching staffs. We got the minimum viable product by getting the win in game number 3. If we win here today, we'll do what we hope to at a minimum by taking 2 games in St. Louis and put ourselves on the brink of that long dreamed about back-to-back World Series championship. And we do get a 3-1 victory. Looks like it got into the bullpen. Rangel with the win in relief. Ross takes the loss. Heilman with his second save of the series. Taking a look at the box score, traded runs in the third inning. Ramos, the DH, with a run-scoring single. In the seventh, sac fly from Pimentel added an insurance run in the top of the eighth. The DH Ramirez with an RBI single. It was Ramos. I might have said Ramirez in the third. That was a St. Louis run in the bottom of the third, not ours. But 3-1 victory for Oakland. Allowed just 6 hits today. Ramirez, our DH, the only guy with multiple hits in our lineup. As we talked about, Pimentel and Ramirez with ribbies. Godina also drove in a run for us. Weiss gave us a good outing. 5 hits, 2 walks, 1 earned run, and 7 strikeouts over 5 1/3 innings. Didn't actually get the win. That went to Rangel because Weiss was out of the game by the time we scored that second run in the 7th inning. But another really good relief outing with Rangel, Shearer, and Heilman combining to allow just 1 hit and 1 walk while striking out 5 over the final 3 2/3 innings. So we've done what we really wanted to do, taking at least 2 games here in St. Louis. And at this point, as much as we'd love to win the World Series in front of the home fans, the goal is to just win game number 5 here in St. Louis and make this as uninteresting as possible for those who want it to be a close series. And game 5 is going to be a rematch of game number 1 with the 2 players who both have strong cases to win Cy Young Awards this season. Our ace, Federico Arriola, on the mound, but St. Louis's ace, Ken Yohannes, also on the mound. So while it's always fun to win a championship at home, to let the fans who have supported you throughout the season enjoy that moment, our goal today is to not give them that opportunity in Oakland and to just win game 5 here, clamp down completely on St. Louis, and hopefully clinch that long-awaited and long-sought-after repeat. Not to be the case, however, though. We still need to get one more win. 9-4 victory for St. Louis. Arriola drops his second game of this series. Bruteno with the win in relief. A save for Nate Colt. A couple of home runs for St. Louis from Dan Thompson, the outstanding first baseman. Taking a look at the box score, St. Louis got a couple in the bottom of the third, but we bounced back with, or bottom of the first, we bounced back with 4 in the top of the third, 2-run single by Godina and a 2-run double by Selvey. But unfortunately, they erupted for 5 runs in the bottom of the third and never looked back after that, adding a couple more in the 8th. So a 9-4 victory for St. Louis, and they stay alive. 2 hits each for Godina, Selvey, and Palomares for our Oakland Athletics. But Arriola with a rough outing, pushing his playoff ERA up to 6.16. 5 hits, 4 walks, 7 earned runs over just 2 2/3 innings. The bullpen, once again, was pretty solid, allowed just 2 runs over the final 6 1/3 innings. But when you give up all of those runs early, definitely hard to get a victory. Ibarra, the excellent reliever for us, and Ishmael Flores, third baseman for St. Louis, both ejected in the 8th inning for igniting a bench-clearing brawl. We'll have to find out if either of those players ends up suspended for the rest of this series. And with a 3-2 lead back in Oakland and the final 2 games in the series, potential 2 games being in Oakland, Still feel like we're in a pretty good spot, but certainly want to get the win today. We won this pitching matchup 3-0 last time around. Sam Bradley, the good right-hander, on the mound for the Cardinals. And we have Luis Villarreal, likely Rookie of the Year, potential Cy Young Award candidate. And he's 3-0 with a 0.90 ERA through the playoffs. Just need one more win from Villarreal, and our A's will be World Series champions. So we're hoping for a big performance from Luis and a big performance from our offense to avoid a winner-take-all, backs against the wall game number 7. And we do get the victory. Our Oakland A's have finally claimed back-to-back World Series championships. A 4-2 victory today. Villarreal runs his record to 2-0 in the World Series, 4-0 overall in these playoffs. Heilman with his 3rd save of the series. Juan Pimentel, your World Series MVP. Pimentel will be a good candidate to win his 2nd AL MVP award when we get to the postseason as well. Bottom of the 3rd, we scored 3 runs. Pimentel and Richards both with run-scoring doubles. They came back to make it 3-2 with runs in the 4th and 5th. Bottom of the 5th, though, Richards with a run-scoring single to give us the final margin of 4-2. And then some good relief work, presumably, after that. A couple of hits from Pimentel, who ended up hitting over 400 in the playoffs with 4 homers and 17 ribbies. Also 2 hits and 2 ribbies from Mr. Richards. Villarreal, 4 hits, no walks, 2 runs, only 1 earned, with 5 strikeouts over 6 innings. And the bullpen, once again, outstanding. Rangel and Heilman combined to allow 1 hit, no earned runs, no runs at all, no walks, and 4 strikeouts over the final 3 innings of the game. Bradley, not good. 6 hits, 2 walks, 4 earned runs over 4 2/3. They brought Johannes on in relief, but it was too little, too late for St. Louis. And our Oakland Athletics have finally earned back-to-back World Series championships. So as we start approaching the off-season and we start approaching a parade, the good news is, as I noted, finally back-to-back titles for our Oakland A's, and we did get to do it at home. When all was said and done, 2nd straight 120-win World Championship season for Oakland, made close to $13 million for Mr. Fisher this year. So I would hope he doesn't cut our budget, as he seems to often do following World Series championships, even if they are profitable seasons like the one that we just had. We will find out shortly, but our A's, as I noted, finally have repeated. And at this point, for our Oakland A's squad, with 5 of the last 8 World Series championships, can definitely stake a very strong claim at being one of the great dynasties in baseball history. And as we get ready for the off-season, something really weird seems to have been happening in international amateur free agency this year. We brought the same 10 players through our scouting camp as we did in October. So we've had all of these players in camp twice, and we've also scouted them all normally once over the last month. But scouting accuracy, which usually goes up pretty significantly when you bring players into back-to-back camps, very low at this point. You can see 8 of the 10 guys, we've only got low scouting accuracy, and 2 of the 10 only average, even though we've had them all in camp 2 times at this point. And as I mentioned, also had our scout pull scouting reports on all of them independently of camp as well. So don't know if it's just bad luck, but definitely not getting to know these players as quickly and as well as we would have hoped. And a ridiculous season score of 1502 for our Oakland A's here. I'm pretty confident that's the highest we've ever been. I think last year was the highest we had previously been at 1333. Honestly, 15 over 1500. I can't ever recall doing that before. So for whatever a good season score is worth, we've put up a big one this year. As I noted, 20 seasons now in Oakland, 13 playoff appearances, and now 6 World Series championships. But the big news is going to be what we have to do in terms of our budget and some season goals. Interestingly, Esteban Narvaez, you may remember we got when we traded for him from Houston, we got them to retain his contract. Unfortunately, he has opted out of his player option, so he's headed to free agency. So he was a guy that we weren't going to have to spend anything on. So unfortunately, his departure just will weaken our team and not help us at all financially. Development facilities are open, arbitration getting underway. Already got a trade proposal from the Red Sox, 23-year-old center fielder for minor league pitcher Edgar Alarcon. Don't see us doing that. Review of the season goals. Happy that we won it all. Still not happy that we haven't acquired a power hitter. Again, he cut our budget after the World Series championship last year. And we've also been a great offense and a great power hitting team for the past several seasons, leading the league in homers this year. So he's kind of tilting at windmills, but I guess he's going to remain angry about that. He's also thrilled with our record in extra inning games. 5 wins in the last 8, thinks that will solidify this team as one of the greats of all time. When discussing the 2036 to 2043 Oakland A's, the only question is great team or the greatest team. I do like Mr. Fisher's thinking with that. Happy with our performance in accomplishing goals. Delighted overall. Wants us to reach the playoffs. Sign Federico Arriola, who, as we've talked about, poised to win a third consecutive Cy Young Award. He is finally arbitration eligible this offseason at $7.5 million. I will say that we have done an outstanding job manipulating Federico Arriola's service time with 3 years and 139 days of service. He has been with us in the major leagues for parts of the last 5 seasons, including, as we've talked about, 3 straight years leading the league in wins and potentially 3 straight Cy Young Awards. And he's only finally becoming arbitration eligible now. So we still have control of him for the next 3 seasons, but the prices are certainly going to be getting much closer to market rate for the outstanding right-hander. Still wants us to acquire a power hitter and wants us to build another dynasty in the next 4 seasons. Well, given that he wants us to continue acquiring a power hitter and also sign a very expensive ace pitcher, as well as reach the playoffs again and build another dynasty, will Mr. Fisher be giving us any additional funding to do that? And I guess technically the answer is yes. He's opened up the wallet to give us an extra $2 million after we, as we've talked about, won back-to-back World Series championships with 120 wins in both seasons. And although we're $2 million up on last year, we do need to keep in mind that our budget was $200 million before we won the back-to-back World Series championships. So we're still not even where we were 2 years ago. So Fisher definitely wants to continue to make things challenging for us. And when the off season begins in our next episode, we'll see if we are up to the challenge of meeting some of his goals. And now that we've got a repeat World Series championship, the goal, I guess, is to see if we can accomplish a three-peat. And we will start working towards that goal in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.